Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this year's Digital Content Expo. I have the pleasure to give one of the keynotes, starting at the content services and content marketing stage, which will have a lot of other presentations during the day, and in the late afternoon we will have a panel discussion here on all these topics related with content services. My presentation is entitled, well, in fact it has two titles, as you will recognize throughout the presentation: Content Services Reaching Out for New Frontiers and the Multi-Facetted Content Management Scene. And during the course of my presentation, I will cover issues like different industries, different audiences, different approaches, show you the way from enterprise content management to content services, talk a little bit about vendors and trends and market studies, give you some ideas about new technologies and their impact on content services, and with 3 slides, I want to give you some brain food for the rest of the day. So let's start with different approaches, different industries. We have different flavors of content management. Every industry uses this term in its own way. So we have a special kind of content management like the publishers use for their print and web publications. We have a complete industry of its own of web content management. Although even publishers use web content management systems to bring their content to the people. But this is an independent industry which cares not a lot about publishers. And we have content management for enterprises. These are more in-house solutions to handle your documents, your record, your valuable information, your assets. And in fact, as well, publishers need these solutions to comply with legal regulations. So I could have added more different flavors of content management, but let's stick with these 3. By the way, the same applies for the term content services. Content services by service agency who do preparation, creation, publication, translation, and other services is an industry of its own. We have content services as term for IT infrastructure. You probably remember the term SOA, Service-Oriented Architecture, where we talk about installations of computer centers and the architecture of software. And we have the flavor of content services as software functionality. These content services are the latest development in this industry, which lead the way from enterprise content management to this new term of content services. So we need to distinguish between these different flavors when we use these terms, content management or content services. My presentation today is about focusing on enterprise content management and content services in the sense of software functionality. These are solutions for enterprise rollout, enterprise-wide installations, to handle all the information inside and outside of the enterprise, wherever the information exists, which belongs to the enterprise. And these information do not only cover traditional content, but data, multimedia assets, and traditional scanned images as documents. So let's have a look about these markets. We have a clear path from enterprise content management to content services. But before we can enter the discussion about content services, we need to know what enterprise content management is about. It's a term defined in the late 1998. 20 years consistent for an industry is rather good, I think. It was created by an industry association, AIIM, the Association for Intelligent Information Management, and this association delivered as well the definition. What is enterprise content management? It is the strategies, the methods and the tools. By the way, vendors often forget the strategies, the organizational impact, the methods, even the vision, but talk about systems only. Enterprise content management is to capture information, input management, with different features to manage the information throughout its life cycle, to store information, to preserve it for decades or even hundreds of years. We don't know how this will work out. And deliver the content to the end user, to output management solutions, always related to organizational processes. And that is the major impact of ECM as a philosophy, as a strategy. We're not talking about here about ECMS, Enterprise Content Management Systems, but about the big roof above all these technologies. Behind this definition, we find a rather good graphic explaining the different components. It's capture with different technologies like scanning or importing. It's the management circle with document management, collaboration, web content management, records management, workflow, business process management. We have the store component, we have the long-term preservation or archiving component, and the deliver components. And behind these, we find as well other technologies. Email is just another type of a document. Collaboration today is not only done with tools like Teams, it's as well social software. Records management is a crucial backbone to be compliant with legal regulations. And workflow and business process management, well, this is the high discipline where it really goes inside the company in the depths of processes, people, and behavior. It's about culture. So ECM always was about infrastructure. The client of the software wasn't ever in any way important. ECM was always about integration. That means we integrate these technologies in the software you're daily using, like your email software, like your ERP, like your HR software. These are the leading applications. ECM was always about services. And that is really strange that people now come around and say, well, let's only talk about services. And ECM was always bridging the gap between data, structured information, content, unstructured information like documents. And if you look in the history of ECM, you find this graphic from 2001, displaying how these 5 components, capture, manage, store, deliver, and preserve, connect this unstructured content, meaning documents and other information, with the controlled data in the databases and, most important, business processes. This idea still remains the same, and I believe it will remain the same as well in 10 years or 20 years. But now, as analysts often create new terms to bring new people to their expensive conferences, they need a new term every year. So somebody with Gartner had the idea, ECM is dead. It's out. It failed. Nobody was able to create a really enterprise-wide solution. Let's get rid of it. They didn't understand that ECM is a concept and not a technology. But big, important analysts like Gartner always drive the market, and they change the industry. And by the way, when you're around this afternoon, the guy who is responsible for this change, the vice president for content management, will be available for your questions on the panel. So what happened in 2017? In a blog, a new employee of Gartner posted this message, well, the death of ECM and the birth of content services. He very soon got some problem because these quadrants and studies about enterprise content management were a cash cow. And now they have to create a new market with new studies for content services. And to really make it more and more complicated than before, they came up with 3 different types of content services. The first was Content Services Platforms, CSP. By the way, anybody of you would run around to a vendor and tell them, hey guys, I need a content services platform. Please sell one to me. Never. People are looking for different things, trying to solve their problems and not looking for platforms. The second thing is, well, content services applications. For those who studied informatics and remember the OSI model, services and applications are clearly 2 different things. Well, they combined it, meaning these are applications which handle invoices, handle business processes, and other stuff. And the third flavor they added was content services components. Components like an OCR engine, a PDF converter, something like that, which is in the infrastructure unseen in the IT. Well, it was not easy, so they came up with this graphic, well, where they have the interfaces and all the other stuff around APIs and connector. What does mean in context? Okay, user-centric, you understand. Repository, what are foundation services? Well, make your own mind about content services by Gartner. But there's not only one big analyst. If we look on the same topic with Forrester, by the way, Forrester started with content services as a new concept even 2 years before Gartner. They came up with transactional content services. Well, that is something about the data and lists and backbone processes and such stuff. And business content services. Well, because the others had a trademark, they had to trademark their own terminology. But it's not the end. Well, this was a post on Twitter. ECM, reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. And so we today have a big mess of different terminology, of different acronyms, of terms, meaning different or similar or the same things. And vendors do this only to confuse you as possible buyer of these technologies not to buy. I have no other explanation. So, if we look on this, Gartner's CSP, Content Services Platforms, and Forrester's BCM, Business Content Services Platform, are in fact good old ECMS, Enterprise Content Management Systems, with the same vendors, the same functionalities, just new terminology. And my personal opinion is, forget about all these different acronyms and terms like enterprise content management systems, enterprise information management content services, intelligent information management content services, platform web content management, information governance, document management systems, records management systems, business content systems, and so on, and so on, and so on, because these are only different parts of, or different manifestations of information management, overarching holistic information management. That's the future. That's my opinion. So let's have a look what happens in these markets and what are the vendors we are talking about. I brought to you some studies, not all from 2018, but as well some new stuff. The Association for Information Management, I skipped the intelligent, produced a study early this year and asking users what is the most important factor in your content services decisions. And when you look on the description and the footer, you will find it's always the same. It's business process management, it's document management, it's records management, it's collaboration. Okay, we see different size of an enterprise drives different solutions. Team productivity is very favored in small enterprises. And by the way, it's much more easy to install an enterprise-wide ECM solution in a small enterprise than in a multinational big enterprise. They made a small summary of their results. I think you can read it. Can anybody read this? So I now take my magic wand. I hope you now can read it. We will not cover every of these topics. By the way, for those doing photographs, we will have a video documentation and the slides will be made available to you, even in PowerPoint, that you can reuse them. Well, great offering, I think. Well, you see in these 10 points different terminologies. They talk about intelligent information management, they talk about ECM, they talk about content services, but the major findings are that ECM really failed because only 30 to 50% after 20 years have a solution. They are still looking for solutions. And they started looking not only for in-house solution, but they hope that cloud is the big, experience which covers everything. You can read this at home. Let's look on some studies and quadrants. I mentioned earlier before that Gartner had been the major analyst who has been defining the ECM market for nearly 15 years. And they produced studies and magic quadrants for 15 years about ECM. And in 2017 they stopped and they came up with content services. And their first quadrant was in September, August last year. 2 weeks on, there will be the next quadrant, but it will be boring. You have to read the study, look on the data, and not look on these nice images. I take my magic wand so that you can read it. What you will find in most of these studies is that always the same vendors are depicted. There are 200 or more vendors of ECM solutions around. But everybody always picks the big ones who have some international importance. And if you look in the most favorable quadrant, the leaders, you find companies like IBM. Well, I don't know why they are still there. They are trying to get rid of all this old stuff around ECM, focusing on artificial intelligence. Microsoft is improving. Well, their records management component, by the way, is rather good. And then we have two vendors which are focusing only on ECM, or as they say here, content services platforms. These are OpenText and Highland. Forget about Oracle. If you look on the challenges, you find even a German company, SER, which is now internationally very active. In the quadrant below, you find Fabersoft from Austria. Even more below, you find DocuWare, company starting in Germany, but now mostly active in the US. But the most interesting part is the visionaries. And the good thing with these companies is that they have no old legacy. Old archives they created 20 years ago, which force them not to change too much to keep the information still available. And there we find companies like Box. You probably think Box is a vendor of the synchronization stuff. No, they are going in real ECM applications, M-files and others. So let's have a look on the competitor, the Forrester Wave. The Forrester Wave is from this year, and if you see in the headline, they even changed again their terminology. They are talking now about enterprise content management content platforms. Why do we have 2 times content in this? I'm not content with this. So if we look on their graph, okay, I help you a little bit. If we look on their graph, which must be different from the quadrant of Gartner due to copyright, well, we find nearly the same vendors, only with other criteria and in other ordering. We find as well OpenText, Microsoft, Highland. We find Box. IBM is going more and more to the left. We find M-files. And my question to you, if you're trying to make a decision for an ECM solution, does such a graphic help? But you won't believe it. In really big 500 companies, everybody looks, oh, is he in Gartner? Otherwise, he will not be on our shortlist. So the last of these quadrants shows another perspective. And probably now you're on your own able to see the differences. Nucleus publishes its ECM value matrix since 6 years, and they have quite another representation of the data. They show the direction of development, and now you can ask me, in the Forrester, M-files was below, and now it's up here. What's the reason? It's very easy. Look on the description. Here we find usability versus functionality. Every of these analysts uses its own terminology and its own criteria. So forget this. Let's have a look on those developments which drive the industry, if we want to name them information management, content services, enterprise content management. It's your choice. You might even call them knowledge management. Doesn't matter. Let's have another view on a Gartner graphic, which is 2 weeks old. It shows the hype cycle. And the first thing what we recognize is neither ECM nor content services nor any of these technologies we discussed earlier is in this graph. It's on the plateau, even behind the plateau. And what we really see which drives development is artificial intelligence. We find different flavors of artificial intelligence and other stuff. That means the content services or ECM industry has no innovation. It takes new features, innovation from other industries. So have a look on the basics. ECM and content services are only adopting new technology from other ITC realms. That means from telecommunication, from computer science, from ERP, from 3D printers, from analytics. They just take these and try to incorporate these in their products. The second is, the good thing is, the basic functionality, the basic features are mature. They are reliable, and they are becoming a commodity. The bad thing is, the software is often too expensive for what it does. If you see a real good text processor for 40 euros and compare it to a simple archiving system for 1,000 euros per workstation, then there's something wrong. And the third argument is they're trying to enhance functionality for automation and integration in business applications. That is a try to stay in the market, to stay competitive. Let's look on some of these trends. Cloud isn't new. Cloud drives a lot. And if we look on what cloud does, it won't go away. But what we should do is differentiate between public, hybrid, in-house, between IaaS, PaaS, SaaS solutions and other, because they serve different needs. In medium-sized businesses, for example, the cost of a cloud solution is lower than an in-house solution. It's more secure. It offers more functionality. You have no problems with updates and availability. 7 days, 24 hours, no problem with professional cloud solutions. If you use it as outsourcing or as a out-of-the-box SaaS, depends on your business case. But there are a lot of these solutions available. We mentioned already Box or Dropbox, but all the other vendors as well created offerings cloud-based. And the good thing is, in Europe, in the EU, you're today allowed to store as well taxation-relevant information in the cloud in another country. So let's look on another topic, mobile. Mobile changes everything. We already passed the point where people use the internet and already business application more with their mobile devices than with the standard PC workstation. But what people often forget is mobile devices change usage models dramatically. It's a difference if you are typing on a keyboard or if you're switching across a screen. It's a difference if you're giving mouse commands than voice commands. The relevance for information management is that nearly all vendors now have apps for mobile. to connect with records management and other solutions. But mobile devices still have some restrictions. For example, if you have an old archive where you scanned complete folders, making of one folder a 500 pages PDF, it makes no fun scrolling through 500 pages PDF on a telephone or even on a tablet. So we need new technology which are coming up, which make from these unstructured information objects data displayed in layouts which look like a document, but they are no documents in the classical sense any longer. Automation, yes, one of the keys, and let's be clear, that's nothing new. Automation was always the goal of every company. And now we face really the entrance of these technologies in the office. We have seen automation technologies in production, in logistics, everywhere, but somehow the office was kind of refugium, where people could sit around, telephone, make a note, and call that work. And this refugium, this island with palms and sandy beaches, is now going away by automation. And this applies not only to paper-based processes, but as you have seen with Alexa and Siri, it goes directly in language processing. And believe me or not, the mouse as a device and even the keyboard as a device will be gone in several years. We will control everything by speech, by gestures, by simulating, typing, or even by thought. Automation has a goal to replace expensive and error-prone human work. And by the way, the results are faster and with higher quality today. So, the relevance for information management, it has always been about automation. But we have big changes with self-learning systems, improving classic functionality like capture, indexing, retrieval, routing, and so on. And that's why ECM vendors are adopting RPA, robotic process automation. Well, this is something like a desktop workflow where the machine watches you, what you're doing, and then continuing doing this on its own. So if your processes are not good, the robot will not be good. So let's have a look on another hype, blockchain. There is not one blockchain, and the technology is available since the 70s. So some still say blockchain is still looking for application. We have these applications in financial systems with these, Ethereum, or we'll find a lot of these currencies. It delivers good protection against alterations, but I believe blockchain has to be differentiated between public blockchain with distributed ledger, with mining and all these other technologies, for example, for financial applications, and private in-house blockchains, for example, for audit trails, where you don't need these distributed ledger systems. And one of the major obstacles people think about is GDPR, data privacy. Well, how do we get personal private information out of a blockchain? But there are solutions, especially if we look on the information management industry. It can be an alternative to archiving, and there are architectures available combining blockchain plus blockchain, where you even can delete objects consistently without breaking the chain. But that's another presentation. So, last not least, artificial intelligence. Well, we're nearing the point where artificial intelligence has the same IQ like a mouse. And this curve is exponentially getting higher and higher. So we have to care for the impact of artificial intelligence. It's the all-dominant topic of technologies, not only in this year, in the past years, and it will be in the next 5 to 10 years. But what we see today is the rise of discussions about social impact and ethics. And we had some crucial breakthroughs in the past 3 years with machine learning, self-learning systems, self-programming systems, programming other software, self-optimizing systems, skipping what they learned, and self-replicating systems, trying to evade being deleted. A lot of new development coming from drivers all over, consumers, Industry 4.0, analytics, automotive, name them. And what we see, artificial intelligence is nearly integrated in all software systems, or will become soon. Often still a hype, but it's improving. The relevance for information management is, it's a basic for automatic classification with capture and retrieval. We can evaluate information, we can do content analytics, we can do process engineering, we can improve business process management, workflow collaboration, and RPI. Systems getting more and more complex, so we can use AI for system control and system management. We can create intelligent help systems, and we can create systems who themselves install them and configure them, analyze the data which is available in the enterprise, and create your file plan if necessary. Last topic, last 3 slides. Let's look about some other aspects of our AIIM content management, because the future is already here. We all suffer from information overload. And one of the most important tasks, which is about organization and knowledge and not about systems, is know your information. Only known, accessible information is of value, can be protected and can be used properly. That is not a question of technologies, but of using information. Next, information dependency. A question I got from a student in one of my courses, how to survive without information and electricity. That's really a crucial question. And if you think about hackers and other threats, and then know that we are by 100% dependent on the availability and accuracy of electronic information, you have to know that we need to do a lot about managing our content. And the last aspect is risks. Google knows everything. Artificial intelligence combined with, and now we're back on the publisher's side, with fake information and manipulation by electronic information systems might lead us into dictatorship by men and/or machines. And my question to you is, what is more dangerous, man or machine? Thank you for listening. It was a pleasure speaking to you.